Well, at the moment, there's still tens of thousands of containers of goods stuck in ships on the outer anchorage at Durban's harbour because Transnet's equipment is not able to unload them. Transnet claims a combination of bad weather and old and badly maintained equipment has led to this huge backlog. Ships can't be unloaded. The backlog, Transnet says, will only be sorted out by February next year. Dave Watts is from the South African Association of Freight Forwarders. Dave, good afternoon to you. We have all of these goods literally in ships sitting offshore. How much money is this costing? This is money literally, I suppose, going down the drain.
Yeah, I think the media that SAF released gives some numbers which are, well, nobody can really get their mind around, so many billions. So, yeah, a huge amount of money on the goods, the value of the goods. And, of course, the cost of vessels just sitting there grows exponentially the longer they stay there. So it's a massive problem, yeah, and we can't pretend it isn't. And it's something that's been heading towards us for, well, frankly, years. Yeah, indeed, it's extremely expensive.
I'm going to come to why this has happened in a moment, but first the shipping companies themselves. So they have certain timetables they're supposed to stick to. This costs them money too, right? They charge the money on and on and on it goes. But some of them may even decide not to actually go to these ports anymore in the future.
Yeah, I think in the long term, this is extraordinarily worrying for our economy because that exists, of course. They cannot sit outside. Currently, I think we've got 25 vessels, container ships outside, waiting at a guess. Well, they're a minimum of about $35,000 a day per vessel. Just do the math. It's actually astronomical. And yes, some lines are going to debate. And already we've seen Maersk and CMCGM bypass Cape Town, as a matter of fact, which is a little bit unfair because Cape Town's performing quite nicely. But I think it's all part of their process of trying to get their line on schedule. And then nobody can be on schedule. The vessels that are sitting in out in the bay at the moment, about 18 of them have been there for more than 2 weeks. And you wouldn't expect a vessel to be more than 7 or 8 days, absolute maximum, in, discharge and out, probably less than that, actually. So it's a really expensive exercise for them. And as you say, that cost comes through to us in one way or another. And already has, of course, or will do from the 1st of December with the 3 or 4 major lines implementing a $200, a 20-foot container surcharge, a $400 surcharge on the bigger 40-foot containers. Import containers. So that's a very substantial additional cost which importers will feel immediately. It's not something that will filter through to them. They're going to get it from sailings from the 1st of December, overseas sailings coming in from the 1st of December. So, yeah, that's a real impact. Long term, of course, and that for me is the biggest concern. What will our trading partners think of us? They can't get their cargo in. They can't get their exports out. What's the long-term thinking in terms of a country that wants to trade and simply can't manage the logistics of it?
Dave, so Transnet is doing certain things. They're getting new equipment in. That will take some time. They're moving to a 4-shift system, so they'll only be changing shifts every 12 hours. It'll be 4 days on, 4 days off. That means that there'll be only 2 shift changes a day rather than 3, things like that. Do you expect any of that to have an impact?
Oh, well, some of it will. It probably already has. Here in Durban, we were running at about 2,500 containers across the quay a day, which was about half what their target was, of probably in the region of 5,000. That's improved over the last few days to about 3,500 yesterday. So that's an improvement. My concern is that they are so short of equipment. What they have most likely done, and I've asked them about this, and I have had not really a solid answer, is they have moved equipment that they would normally use on the land side to load trucks to the water side, so that we're already seeing this morning, at one point this morning, there were 550 trucks waiting to be serviced either in the staging area at DCT at the main container terminal or in the actual yard being serviced. 550 trucks. That's expensive too, and it's very, very expensive for local truck owners and operators here.
So basically the problem is, and I don't want to get too technical on this because I unfortunately stopped being excited about cranes some time ago, but they've got new cranes coming, right? And I imagine these cranes will come in bits. They're speaking to the OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers, etc. How long do you think it'll be before those cranes are up and running?
Well, I'm not too sure that they've got new cranes coming. They do have 7 rubber tie gantries, which is a type of crane that's used at Pier 1 here and in Cape Town. Those 7 are second-hand and destined for Cape Town, which desperately needs them, no question about it. Are they actually got some on the water or manufactured? Have orders been placed? I'm not aware of that. They do plan to, and the whole process is ongoing. But I can't see any new equipment arriving here late next year.
Sure.
So there's not a short-term solving of this problem. They are looking at bringing in some used equipment, hiring or leasing equipment. None of this lies around waiting for somebody to. You can't buy them, take them off the shelf. And even used equipment is difficult to find, and you need to make sure that the word used is not exactly what it means. So this is not something that will be solved in the short term as far as the broad question is concerned of better performance there.
So where do you think the problem started? And I've seen different sort of analysis and commentary around this. Obviously, there's a long history to it. There was a lack of maintenance and a lack of sort of upgrading of this equipment for years, perhaps sort of during what I suppose we call the state capture era, rightly or wrongly. I've heard some quite informed commentary really pointing to the previous management of Transnet, by which I mean the management that resigned quite recently. Who do you blame for this?
Well, that's a little bit unfair because they weren't there for very long. They were there for about 3 years. This problem has been building up for 10 to 15 years. Obviously, state capture was huge. Let's be honest, some of the money available for this equipment at the time, well, to quote our Minister of Public Enterprises, was stolen. So the money was not there and nothing was done about it. There was no understanding of the need to refurbish midlife, to make plans and put funds aside for new equipment when the old equipment began to get to the end of its life. This problem is not new. This problem goes back 20 years, I would say. I have recollection of meetings with Minister Alex Irvin 20 years ago when we had a big problem with shortage of cranes. The private sector managed to sort that out with the help of MSC for temporary. Those cranes now are reaching the end of their lives. But no pre-planning has been made in terms of really getting this organized. We shouldn't even be having this discussion. But the job wasn't done. And I would agree, but I think it's most unfair to blame the recent management. They were there for, 3 years, 4 years? And the problem goes back long, long ago.
And Dave, privatization there, the use of private operators, and we know that Pier 2 in Durban, which is the busiest part of the busiest port in the country, is going to have a private operator. It's very complicated. People don't like me using the word privatization. Is that going to make a difference? Well,
to be honest, Stephen, I think it's possibly part of the problem we're facing at the moment. Neither the trade unions or the workers are too fond of private sector involvement. And I would suggest that has something to do with a slow work performance that's been going on for the last since mid-July when the announcement was made. It's quite noticeable that things started slowing down almost from that time. So I cannot get away in my mind that that's another possible reason for that. Yeah, I'm a private sector person, so I naturally think that private sector will do a better job. That's just where I come from. Will this occur? Will this happen? We shall have to see. And I'm quite looking forward to hearing some finality on the question of the Filipino company coming in here. And I think a lot of us are, because though it was quite hot at one point, it seems to have gone a little bit off the boil. So we'd be interested to see what exactly is happening around that too.
David Watts, thank you. From the South African Association of Freight Forwarders, do appreciate the time. Important views there, of course, about that situation. Well,